If you're thinking about moving to the Savannah, Georgia area, anywhere in Chatham, Bryan, or Effingham County, we need to talk about flood zones, flood insurance, hurricanes, and homeowners insurance. I'm Allison Harris with the Harris Home Team, and I want to talk to you about these things, but not in a dramatic way. Think of it like a big sister who's lived through Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Irma kind of way. So during Hurricane Matthew, I had an enormous tree on my house. Here's a picture. It was not great. So we also had a very large insurance claim. And then during Irma, which was actually the next year, so Hurricane Matthew was in 2016 and Hurricane Irma was in 2017, we evacuated. We went to Lake Oconee and they got hit just as hard as Savannah, if not harder. It was kind of a mess, but we're all still here. We still love living in coastal Georgia. So this video is not about fear. And it's not about scaring you, but it's about understanding that everything's easier if you have a plan. So if you're buying in the Savannah area, especially Chatham County or the islands, you're gonna see letters like VE, AE, X, and X500, and these all apply to flood zones. So here's what they actually mean. V stands for velocity. So these are going to be coastal areas that are exposed to wave action during a storm surge. So think Tybee Island and some very exposed waterfront properties. And not all of Tybee Island. In fact, there's parts of Tybee Island that aren't in a flood zone at all, but those oceanfront properties, they are could potentially be in the VE zone. So we need to be very, very conscientious and make sure that you understand how that's going to impact your payment if you buy in a VE zone. So AE, it's also considered high risk, but it's without the breaking wave velocity. So you're going to see AE flood zones a lot in waterfront communities. Think Wilmington Island, Whitmarsh Island, Tualahe Island, Isle of Hope, Burnside, and even parts of Richmond Hill. The risk here is rising water levels. So think rising water levels, not waves. So both VE and AE are special flood zone hazard areas. And if you have a mortgage in Savannah and you're in one of those zones, your lender is going to require flood insurance. A couple of other zones you'll see are X zone and X500. So X is minimal risk and flood insurance is not required. And the X500 is a more moderate risk, but usually doesn't require flood insurance either. So these are all zones that are sort of determined by FEMA modeling. So the maps in coastal Georgia have been updated multiple times over the past decade, especially after Hurricane Matthew. So we always want to check the current FEMA map before writing an offer. All the agents on our team have access to that information, and we are more than happy to pull it up for you on any address. And then we also need to remember what your due diligence period is for. So the due diligence is usually 5 to 14 days at the beginning of your contract or your sales contract, where you can investigate anything you want to investigate about the property. And we always recommend during this investigation window that obviously you're going to get a home inspection, a pest inspection, but we're going to want you to confirm the flood zone, and we're going to want you to price your flood insurance and price your homeowner's insurance or hazard insurance. So in coastal Georgia, insurance can vary dramatically from one house to the next. So you'd be surprised what they take into consideration. So the age of the roof matters, the type of construction for the home and year built. They want to know if your wiring is updated, what kind of pipes you have in the home. But then things are going to matter like elevation and your prior claims. So flood insurance is typically written through FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program. It's separate from your homeowner's insurance, and it does have coverage limits and specific rules. So you're going to want to talk with your insurance provider to be sure you understand these things. So here's why this matters. So I have seen twice in Metro Savannah, 2 homes that are outside a high risk flood zone. So they're in the X flood zone, but they still had multiple prior flood events due to drainage issues. So they're not in a flood zone, but due to drainage, they have flooded multiple times. And properties with repeated flood claims can be labeled repetitive loss properties, and insurance can become very difficult or very expensive. So knowing that your home is in the X flood zone, you may not price out your flood insurance or your insurance at all during your due diligence. And then you get a surprise later that maybe you can't get flood insurance at all on the property, or that it's very expensive because of prior loss. So just remember that due diligence is there so you can investigate and decide with clarity whether or not you want to move forward with a purchase. I pray that you use it. Just use it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is hurricanes. Living in Savannah means hurricane season. It's not constant chaos, but it's awareness. If you're in Chatham County, I would love for you to sign up for alerts from CEMA, that's Chatham Emergency Management Agency. Now, Bryan County and Effingham County, they each have their own management agency, so sign up for the correct emergency management based on where you live. So for storm tracking, I'm going to recommend a couple of websites. I love the National Hurricane Center. The National Weather Service out of Charleston, their office is fantastic. And then for calm, data-driven analysis, I highly recommend that you follow Tropical Tidbits. So we want you to find a source of great information that is not going to just make you panic. Sometimes the national weather news cycle can be a little panic-inducing, so I want you to find the particular sources that give you the great information that don't make you feel terrified. So we need to talk about evacuation decisions as well. So you need to know your zone, storm surge protections, and then follow the official guidance of your emergency management for your county. So we're not going to make our decisions based on fear, of course, but this is really important information to know when you have to make last-minute decisions. So if you live in Savannah or on the islands, your main evacuation artery out of Savannah is going to be I-16. During large-scale evacuation, Georgia uses contraflow. So that means that all lanes on I-16 flow west out of Savannah toward Macon. Have you ever wondered what those arms are on the on-ramps that look like little train arms? So those drop during contraflow to keep traffic that's going the normal direction off the interstate. So it's designed to be sure that as many people can get out of the area as possible. So what you don't want to wait for there's a couple of pitfalls. You don't want to wait until gas stations are empty. If you see a storm coming, go ahead and fill up your tank early in the week just to be sure you're good to go. You also need to be sure that you make plans for a hotel. Some people just drive until they find one and they end up in like Birmingham, Alabama. So if you can, go ahead and make a hotel reservation or have a plan for what family you're going to visit. And you also want to take into consideration that you want to leave at an appropriate time so traffic is not totally strained. You don't want to use all the gas in your tank sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic. But contraflow does help with that. So have a loose plan in place because that is absolutely how you stay calm before an emergency. So let's talk about practical life in Savannah. The week before a storm, especially if people aren't evacuating, Publix is empty, Kroger is empty, all of the grocery stores are empty. There is no bread, there is no milk, there is no water. And of course, after a significant storm, depending on infrastructure and how fast it can get put back into place, it's going to take a few days for perishables to fully restock in our area. So there's some things that you should absolutely have on hand at all times. So we're going to recommend that you store water and you keep some shelf-stable food. Have your batteries and flashlights ready. Make sure you charge your power banks. My house, we own a portable generator. We recently looked into getting a whole house generator, and quotes for our home were around $17,000. And though that would be an amazing luxury, it felt like an awful lot of money for 5 to 7 days of comfort if we lose power in our area. So some families love them, and if you work from home or have medical needs, it may make sense for your family. But also, if you use a portable generator, make sure that you follow the safety guidelines. You never want to run it indoors or in a garage. Keep it away from windows. You're going to want to store your fuel safely. So just remember that preparation is absolutely going to reduce anxiety. So living in Savannah, Georgia means March sunsets, historic streets, boating, humidity, and hurricane season. But it's manageable when you understand flood zones, insurance, evacuation procedures, and preparation. You're going to feel much more steady if you have a plan. So if you're thinking about moving to Chatham, Bryan, or Effingham County and want the full breakdown, visit newto912.com. It is a fantastic guide that's going to give you all the information you need to move to Savannah. And if you're already here, we've weathered storms before and we're going to weather the next one too. So welcome to the area, and I hope that this gives you a little bit of peace and calm around hurricane season.